breakout sessions are already online, so we can be sure that we could reach you already. Thank you. Okay, Fabiola, PHE, Susana, FPL, gracias. Creo que está Paulo también de la sesión de evidencia, gestión del conocimiento, Paulo Otero. Se me confirma, por favor, por el chat. Les agradezco. Não está, não. Vamos empezar a las 2:05, entonces 2 minutos más, si me permiten la paciencia. Así ya garantizamos más quórum, ya vamos con...
We're going to start at 2:05 if you are patient enough. That way we will have a better quorum. So we're going to start 2 minutes from now.
We will begin I think I can invite. Okay. So we are reaching 150 participants. I think that we can begin. From my watch here is already 2:05. So if you allow me, I will begin. Vamos a empezar entonces la sesión de la tarde. Feliz tarde.
We're going to start our afternoon session. Good afternoon to all of you. Let us start with the conclusion of our webinar, where we have had several opportunities to have our exchanges. And today, as of now, we're going to wrap up with the afternoon activities, where I would like to start by recognizing the e-posters that you sent us. It was fantastic. We had 1,640 voters. I know there was an entire campaign to vote for posters, but it was really an initiative. We invited the collaborating centers, the cooperators from WHO, to and from Paho to visit the exhibition, look at the posters so that they could understand how these collaborating centers, the 183 CCs of this region that help Paho and the WHO to inform them about what they do, their deliverables, in their work plan, as well as recommendations as to how we can together achieve the SDGs. So each poster, in addition to presenting their own results, are also a record of how we can improve technical cooperation together, improve collaboration with the CCs, and also how to reach together the SDG. So, congratulations to Brazil, 87 votes, Argentina, 29 votes. Those were the ones that obtained the highest number of votes. We know that the winners, we had to eliminate some votes due to some issue in the voting process, but 87 votes for Brazil, 29 votes for Argentina. They were the most voted ones. So when people were voting, we would increasing the repetition of this information. So when we had some problems with how people would include information, for instance, some put e.g. bra or bra in lowercase, we could say that Brazil 87 and Argentina 29 have won the contest. Brazil 87. Let me comment this very quickly. It is a new center. It has just been designated a couple of months ago. It is a center that is linked to the Osvaldo Cruz Foundation. And we are very pleased to know that as soon as they have been appointed, they are already working. They have already identified themselves. They have already made proposals as to how they're going to work. And then Argentina 29, it is the CC for the resistance against pesticides and also vectors for Chagas and dengue. You will see that they really made an effort in include information and visual information. We were very pleased and very grateful for their effort and dedication. Several centers informed us that they had wanted to send the posters by the deadline, which was April 16. Those that were unable to meet the deadline but would still wish to send their posters in order to participate in this important mechanism, we will open up the possibility in the upcoming days for you to send us your contributions, and you will see that we're asking for recommendations and deliverables. This was a very interesting experience. I see that many people in the chat are saying that this was an interesting opportunity to know and to visualize the work of this big working group. Thank you so much. With this, we finish the poster session, and now we will continue with the presentation of the main items that were discussed in each breakout group. And I am going to invite Sandy Weinger, who is going to coordinate the meeting. I kindly ask the rapporteurs to limit themselves for 5 minutes. Please turn on your camera so we can see you. We do not need a PowerPoint. We just want a dialogue. We want to hear from you how your meeting went and which are the main points that you want to bring up and which are your recommendations. Sandy?
Thank you to everybody for participating. I know that we've had you going to different places and clicking here and clicking there. So thank you very much for coming back here at 2 o'clock to present the summaries of the discussions that you had within your breakout sessions. So we will start with CDE. Whoever is the rapporteur, if you could introduce yourself and just give us a very brief presentation. Again, I just wanted to mention that all sessions have been recorded, so we will be able to capture all the information that was discussed. So don't worry about if you leave anything out. That's fine. We'll try to capture it later. So CDE, please go ahead.
Gracias, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. Amalia Laborde from Uruguay. It was an honor to be the rapporteur on the group of communicable diseases, environment and climate with Dr. Llanos. We had an excellent meeting with good participation, and based on the 6 questions, we made some comments which increased the cooperation between the CCs and Paho. We recognized and were grateful for the importance of the CCs in their technical cooperation, and I believe that it is important for all of us who participate in this meeting that a lot of emphasis was placed on the dialogue that is needed between the CCs and also across divisions and Paho. We also mentioned the need to promote the transdiscipline and think of new curricula which should be taken into account by Paho so that CCs can better contribute to the SDGs. We also spoke about the importance of regular communication between the Paho unities and the CCs through video conferencing or specific small forum, and also to strengthen the role of CCs in their member states and their potential to contribute to local programs. We highlighted the need to strengthen the training of human resources, capacity development. Another important aspect, I do not want to take too much of your time. I have some notes here which are kind of lengthy. A lot of emphasis was placed in the fact that we should contribute in monitoring and information and monitoring system and the role of CCs in these systems. We mentioned the importance of South-South cooperation and of giving new life to the centers with programs which have had success. Programs which have impact in several programs or actions. For instance, the elimination of pesticides in open air. This could, of course, be very important to avoid the transmission of infectious diseases and also the impact that this could have on equity or lack thereof. Another tool was mentioned, which is the practice communities where centers can participate in order to provide better support for the programs. The importance of the cooperation amongst Paho and CC experts and the invitation of these experts to technical meetings of Paho in order to make them participate and give credit when they participate, and also including the publication of scientific articles or works that are prepared by the CCs. Other aspects that strengthen the interaction were novel ideas, for instance, the presence of the CCs via videos or posters or other forms so that they could be present and visible in the web page of Paho so that they can be seen by the entire network. Finally, as far as the creation of networks, we considered that it was very important to use the opportunity window, such as some concrete measures that Paho carries out, and to take advantage of these opportunities in order to identify the capacities of member states and develop networks that can strengthen all members of the region and that would allow technical progress in a standardized way so that many countries may benefit from these networks. We spoke about malaria labs or argovirus, but we could identify other areas which could be of importance in order to make progress between the collaboration between CCs and Paho. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctora Laborde. We have a lot of information. The Department of CDE is one of our departments that has many collaborating centers. So thank you very much for that recap and information and all of the different ideas and suggestions that you have for us. Thank you again.
Sandy, if
Yes.
you don't mind, as we call the reporters, if they can, besides their names, to also identify their collaborating centers. So we put in the remarks. Thank you very much.
Amalia, did you tell us which center you? Okay.
Bien. El Centro Colaborador de Uruguay, URU2.
The collaborating center of Uruguay.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, the sound broke off and the interpreter could not hear. Something about the environment, but the interpreter apologizes. I could not hear.
Slide, Eliana. Okay, so the next one is NMH, non-communicable diseases, risk factors, and mental health. And I believe we have Dr. Kevin Welding who will speak.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Dr. Kevin Welding from the Institute for Global Tobacco Control. We're Collaborating Center USA 307 on tobacco control surveillance and evaluation. So I was the rapporteur for the non-communicable diseases, risk factors, and mental health breakout. I'm actually going to use those questions as my guide through my notes. So we had a nice introduction by Dr. Hennis that pointed out that this department has 26 active institutions that are collaborating centers based in 6 countries. Obviously, we are focused on SDG number 3, good health and well-being, but obviously we all know that the SDGs are all interrelated. You know, the idea of thinking health in all departments or broadly health in all decisions. Okay, so for the questions, how can the collaborating centers further support Paho to achieve the SDGs? Obviously, we can be doing evidence creation, particularly research linked to policy change. We could be doing surveillance activities. There was an emphasis on capacity building. This could be courses and educational programs, but also providing technical support. And there was also an idea that all this needs to be inclusive. So there's this focus on equity. And there was a reiteration that we have to remember that disabilities also needs to be included as a possible source of inequity. Now, how can the collaborating centers contribute to the development of regional global action plans, strategies, resolutions, and other mandates? there was this idea that we should focus on the full processes and not just endpoints, thinking about the whole system. There should be more collaborating center interaction. We should be creating networks and finding synergies. It was brought to our attention that Chile, I think, has 6 collaborating centers, and they've formed a network and they meet twice a month, which is very impressive. There should be opportunities for cross-topic interaction between collaborating centers based on some sort of expertise. So not just tobacco meeting with tobacco or alcohol meeting with alcohol, but something like social marketing or dissemination expertise that could be across topics. How can the collaborating centers support the organization in identifying and filling technical cooperation gaps? The main thing that came out was that you could grow the collaborating center network, particularly with non-English speaking collaborating centers across the region. In some cases, the collaborating centers could help other organizations interact with Paho or the governments in their countries. Obviously, identifying and filling these gaps takes resources, so money, time, and government data would be, any help would be a plus there. How can the NCD and mental health department improve its interactions and communications with collaborating centers to support the priorities? For collaborating centers, we thought it's hard to reach an entire population, so Paho could be helping us reach a wider audience with our research and dissemination. Obviously, smaller networks could be useful, research dissemination between the collaborating centers. Approaches, again, that I mentioned that cut across topic areas would be helpful. And there was also brought up that using personal interest stories as a vehicle for communicating results can be quite effective. How can the NCD mental health department better identify and showcase the collaborating center deliverables? It was brought up that for academic collaborating centers, our outputs typically are research articles. So help turning those research articles into policy briefs or other deliverables that are sort of more digestible for the public would help dissemination a lot. Obviously, it was also brought up the use of the Paho unit newsletters could be helpful, as well as the website that's already existing for the collaborating centers. There was this idea of linking everything everywhere, so making the deliverables more public facing. How can the NCD and mental health department support the formation of collaborating centers networks and or strengthen those that are already established? So Paho could collaborate or coordinate and manage those networks. These could be small groups like we talked about based on subtopics. It was also brought up they could promote not just a regional network, but global for some of these subtopics. And also just creating opportunities for the collaborating centers to interact with each other virtually and hopefully at some point in person. That was a common theme throughout our discussion, that people were very open to further interaction and collaboration between the collaborating centers. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. The theme of networking seems to be very important, and it's nice to know that Chile has been actively working together with their collaborating centers. And I know that NMH has several other networking groups of collaborating centers within a network according to technical topics. So thank you very much for that. So we will go next to HSS, Health Systems and Services, Universal Health Coverage, Research, Nursing, and Bioethics. Please identify your speaker.
I'm Jan Hatcher Roberts. I was the rapporteur.
Okay.
And we're from
yes.
Yeah, WHO Collaborating Center for Knowledge Translation, Technology Assessment for Health Equity, and we're CAN 108. So the first question is how the collaborating centers can further support the work. We talked about how to better link up and be recognized for our work with other universities and networks. And this needs to be an overarching value or request by Paho that this would be an important way of expanding our contribution on this. We need to take stock of what's going on at the national level and see what we're doing collectively. I think that's been said. We need to help to develop key indicators. We had quite a bit of discussion on this related to the SDGs and how our work in terms of developing this in our country and for our WHO CCs, and what would that look like? We need to further our work beyond our own kind of locked in tours and activities, and need to be creative and aware of the SDGs and how they tie in with our collaborating center work, which may not be that clear in the tours, but offers opportunities, for example, engineering, nursing, and sustainability. And that once again, they said this needs to emanate from the existing tours and needs to be recognized and valued as deliverables. One of the ideas was to take a look at the like-minded collaborating centers Paho wide, look at the posters, get an idea of the thematics that are loading around the SDGs on the posters, and then get a national idea of capacity and collaboration. The other idea would be to look at the SDG reports for each country and lay them out against what the collaborating centers are doing and how they've reported in the posters. Some of the sub networks are doing particularly well in terms of meeting and exchanging information, not necessarily on the SDGs, but typically, and I found that myself, the nursing networks are so well developed, and the sub-nursing networks, they meet regularly for the region, the sub-region, and that model would be very good for some of the other thematic areas. Certainly there's Redetza for the health technology assessment area, but it needs the English counterpoint. One of the issues that was brought up as well was that there's certain networks in the nursing network that have a website that consolidates all of their publications, events, etc., but that isn't linked to the Paho website, and it's hard to search on the Paho website for collaborating center related publications that are coming out of collaborating centers. So the kind of the search function and engines we're thinking could be enhanced in order for us to do some of this work. And the example was to try, was they were developing the State of the World Nursing Report to try to understand what the impact of the collaborating centers were in that. The 2 countries, Canada and Brazil, have had countrywide meetings of their collaborating centers. Brazil focused on the SDGs and finding common areas for working together, and we thought that was a great model and initiative. The Canadian one was just all collaborating centers, and there was no real theme, but we really feel that this should be encouraged. We grouped question 2 and 3 together, and we talked about the specific mapping about who's doing what where with the collaborating centers that's been mentioned before. One of the things that came up is a language barrier for between Canada and there is a fair increasing Spanish capacity, but French, Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and how that might help to develop the sub-thematic areas. And one of the other things that was brought up here was that some countries don't have any collaborating centers. So how can a network of collaborating centers help with the needs of that country and build capacity in those countries? Once again, the matrix idea came up of the collaborating centers by SDG contribution and really mapping that out for each country. Mexico had a Mexican national level meeting and actually had small videos. And I think this links to the little vignettes that other people were talking about. And then question 4 and 5, we combined improving interactions, communications, and showcasing. Once again, the videos. The issue around coordination often falls to the responsible technical officer at the country level, but we really need to gauge at the country level office to figure out what's going on. It was suggested that Paho could provide coordinations and support for these linkages across themes and goals. The bulletin the Paho bulletin and also the specific health services and systems electronic bulletin might be a way to highlight the work of the collaborating centers. And once again, this whole concept of the search function to allow emerging themes and cross-cutters to be identified, like equity, diversity, etc., those things. And it was mentioned that our collaborating center websites, it's critical that we keep them up to date and interactive and linked. And I think that was it. And then a fair bit of discussion around next steps. What do we need to do? What's going to happen? There's a great deal of enthusiasm for wanting to move to the next step already. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much, Janet. And thank you for bringing up the topic of the posters. We do have over 50 posters, so thank you. There's a lot of information, rich information that we can gather from those posters, and we definitely will. Regarding the publications that you mentioned, yes, we do also have a large amount of publications that are done with collaborating centers with the help of their expertise. So yes, we have to look into that as to how to better publish that. And as far as having no CCs in certain countries and being able to help them, yes, one of the functions of being a collaborating center is to be able to twin with other less, maybe to improve institutional capacity in other institutions. So yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Janet. And moving on. Leanne, I believe it's FPL, the Family and Life Course, Health Promotion, Workers' Health and Immunization. I don't see the slide. Go ahead.
I'm the rapporteur. I'm Suzanne Jackson. From the WHO Collaborating Center in Health Promotion, connected to the Center for Global Health at the Dalla Lana School of Public Health at the University of Toronto. So in this group, there was a lot of interest amongst the different WHO CCs to collaborate and to get together annually in a meeting like this. And we combined the questions together into three main questions. One of them was, how can we better align the work of the centers to Paho's and WHO's priorities in the SDGs? We do that through our tours or terms of reference, but we also could use a sustainable development goal, sub-goal, target to have a focus for one of these WHOCC meetings, so that there's a focus for many of us to get together on an intersectoral topic. How can Paho better identify and showcase the Collaborating Center deliverables? There was a lot of talk about a quarterly newsletter. People were impressed with the information about all the different centers at this meeting. And it could be a virtual newsletter that has written pieces or videos that connect to each other. The challenge is whether Paho has the resources to prepare such a newsletter on a quarterly basis. We suggested creating a repository where WHOCCs can share our different projects. And this would support informal collaboration. And it could be a place for sharing tools, for enabling us to see what each other's doing. Raul Medina from the Mexico 36 Collaborating Center already has a platform for creating such a repository, and indicated his willingness, I see Raul there, to coordinate this initiative. Then we also talked about the need for virtual connection, and to connect. Several other people have mentioned the interest in cross-cutting topics. So the virtual connection on cross-cutting topics. So there would be like a virtual meet and greet on different thematic areas So they could be cross-cutting themes, could be organized around the SDGs or a target of the SDGs. Or it could be organized in the other way around, so that there's one topic like health promotion, which reaches quite a few different SDGs, so that you could do it a couple of different ways. Or they could be cross-cutting themes that would be around topics like planning, monitoring, evaluation, how to take programs to scale, that kind of thing. We need these meet and greets to be fairly small, because if the numbers are too big, we can't really interact on the Zoom virtual platform. And again, we felt that a challenge would be to ask Paho staff to organize these multiple meet and greets. So we suggested that maybe a couple of us could organize a couple of these meet and greets to pilot the idea amongst in areas that we're particularly interested in. The third question is, what are good examples of what works well in the collaboration with the CCs? What are the best practices? One suggestion was to create a network. And the idea was that there are existing networks within a topic area. So we have an aging, centers interested in workers' health or occupational health or aging all have networks. We're talking about networking the networks, like going across areas, not one example was that silicosis in workers connects to TB, but these two topics are related to different focal points in Paho. So the idea would be to try and network these together. Again, a challenge is around coordinating it. A second suggestion on the collaboration between WHO CCs was to look for synergies and possible collaborations. So we could look at our own terms of reference and then identify cross-cutting connections with other WHO CCs and set up a Zoom call for the ones that we're interested in. There was a question about whether we're allowed to contact others, WHO CCs, for these kinds of collaborative initiatives without going through Paho. So that's a question for you, but that came up. The third option was to seek funding for one collaborative proposal between different WHO CCs, especially an intersectoral proposal that might impact one country, one subregion. Then there was also concern that if we have all our meetings virtually, then we are missing out on the benefits of meeting face-to-face. So eventually it would be nice to be able to meet face-to-face. We also suggested a mentor system, so connecting one more experienced collaborating center with a less experienced one in terms of collaboration and how things work. And then that one collaborating center could create a space for collaborating between all the WHO CCs in one country. And that was mentioned, Janet just mentioned that in terms of there are networks that connect CCs on a topic, but there are also attempts being made to connect people in a country. Chile is an example that came up in our group. That's the end.
Thank you, Suzanne. I wanted to mention the newsletter. You mentioned the quarterly newsletter, and I just wanted to say that we have a quarterly newsletter. We have published the 3rd edition now, and we're actually going according to departments. So I think it would fit in really well with the way that we have divided up the breakout sessions. So you can go to the Paho CC site now and subscribe to that quarterly newsletter. We will also send you the information through our listserv to all CC directors. So yes, we would very much like you to take a look at the newsletters that we are producing. As far as what you said about mentorship between CCs, that's a really good idea. We also are thinking about providing that mentorship within our own staff so that newer ROs, newer responsible officers can get that mentorship from ones who have been working with CCs for a long time. And your question regarding can CCs talk to each other without Paho? Yes, absolutely. We don't have any issues with that. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, Eliane, to EIH, Evidence, Information Systems, Knowledge Management, and Information. And who is your rapporteur?
Bueno, soy yo, Paulo Otero, del Centro de Argentina 34, que es el Departamento de Informática.
CC34, IT, the Italian hospital. In our session, that was coordinated by Sebastián García Saizó and Marcelo D'Agostino. And initially, we had a presentation that was made showing all the CCs as that they related to the different areas where EIH works, particularly all those that have to do with telemedicine, then everything that has to do with terminology and standards, knowledge management, equity, and equity monitoring, and also for knowledge production. And all the centers that work. Eliane presented the centers that work directly with BIREME and also knowledge management. So the proposal was very interesting because in a way, these are areas that have a lot of points in common, and some CCs were repeated in different areas, and everything around evidence and intelligence and the connection with health. The idea was to have a session with questions so that we can discuss things amongst all. The session was coordinated by Marcelo D'Agostino on the points of synergy that existed between the CCs and what could be done today that is not being done, and how to establish work lines to be prioritized. So in that regard, what was proposed is that many CCs agreed on saying that we have a large amount of data to be analyzed, be it institutions or countries that show everything that has to do with inequities. In many cases, we have a lack of a capacity in order to interpret through the centers the information that is generated, that is to say, how to give it a context, and also the information that is generated many a times does not bring results or measures that were taken about that information. It would be very interesting how to integrate the data on health that countries and ministries and institutions can provide, but also to obtain data from people in order to bring them together and to truly be able to measure the issue of inequalities. What I did not say is that this word inequity or inequality is the one that was greatly discussed during this session, particularly because of the context of the pandemic showed in our region the major inequalities that exist in health. The comment was what always happens, that in a way the CCs work in an isolated, independent way. And it is very interesting to see these meetings in order to get to know each other better, and in a way to be able to look for points in common and the integration, which is something that has already been mentioned by the other CCs. We also spoke about everything that has to do with the classification of the C11 that is being developed, as well as the challenges that it entails in integrating this classification for the use of indicators, and also obviously in order to measure everything that has to do with these inequalities and how to be able to comply and attain the SDGs. One of the issues that came up is that we don't have a clear criterion on how to be able to have indicators on the basis of the information on SDGs and monitoring of these inequalities, which was also another issue that was brought to the discussion amongst all CCs. Essentially, the idea is to be able to work along those lines, the integration of the classification of diseases, focusing on the SDGs, in order to be able to find something in common, and for all CCs that depend on AEIH to be able to provide assistance and to help out. We also discussed another issue, that there's a large amount of demand for knowledge, but there's still some missing, and that is a standardization of data for the correct analysis of the data and how to respond to all the challenges posed by public health. That is to say, we have a lot of data, but there's a low capacity for its analysis, and that is why we're focused on the need for establishing clearly what the priorities are in order to work along those lines. On the other hand, since this is a relatively new CEC for many countries, we also propose to look into possibilities where we could more actively show how the CO11 works so that member countries can adopt it in a definitive way. And obviously, all of this within the framework of network cooperation, so that in a way we can define these goals and how all CCs can be of assistance. Last but not least, it was stressed that access to information is also a right that people have, and we have huge gaps in access as another topic to be considered in connection with equality and how to establish all these indicators and the databases in order to measure it. In summary, our meeting was very interesting because irrespective of how we keep repeating many of these issues, that there were several missions, and the objective is to be able to manage, how to be able to manage knowledge on the basis of the data available, and how can we make sure that they are useful in order to generate indicators, and for the CEO allow us to continue with that task.
It seems that synergy is important, and how to create it. We need to find ways to create more synergy and data, how to manage data, information, how to prioritize it and how to access it to make it more accessible to all. And I don't recall right now in English, but the CA11 is also a very important topic to the EIH department and the collaborating centers that work on that in that topic. Thank you very much. ICD 11, yes. Thank you. And now we go to PHE, Health Emergencies and Preparedness, International Health Regulations. And who is your rapporteur?
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. My name is Fabiola Hernandez from the Mexico 33CC, a WHO CC in resistance to antimicrobials in food-borne bacteria, the National Service of Agri-Food from Mexico. And in our group that was moderated by Dr. Enrique Perez, and in fact, he is our mentor as CC. He's a wonderful guide who provides a lot of support. We decided to group the questions precisely in two blocks. The first big block has to do with how to better define the actions of CCs. And in that regard, the group came to a consensus that actions carried out by the different centers do comply with the regional and global action plans, and in particular SDGs. And that one of the functions or one of the opportunities that CCs have, as has already been mentioned, is depicting gaps. CCs have identified the planning of activities following a certain line and a planning based on these goals. And it is also proposed precisely so as not to have a duplication of achievement or duplication of efforts to normalize meetings between CCs in order to share experiences and lessons learned, because we all know that we can get the results, but it is a long and winding road. And so many times it is very interesting to get to know the experiences that other groups have had and that we have had as groups in terms of difficulties in achieving our objectives. In connection with how we can improve cooperation precisely between CCs, it seems to me that we agree with all the previous rapporteurs, because the very relevant issue is communication. So the proposal is to consider the major need that exists and a huge window of opportunity in order to improve communication between and amongst SECs in order to empower actions developed. So what were the proposals? The first one was meetings, exchange meetings such as this one that we're holding, which has been a great experience. And also we did the same, a proposal on a repository that in general terms would list the products and services in what we call the toolbox or the toolkit of cooperating centers, and emphasizing the deliverables being classified by the item they represent, and above all, that they be accessible and user-friendly, because although we know that we have a database that is public with all the CCs, where you can do and perform the search by terms of reference, by topic, or a query by country or different filters, it does seem to us important that we have to make it more accessible. As I had already said, these links to the products that have already been created in the different centers. And precisely one of these ways of approaching this could be with this issue of posters. In fact, we all thought that this was a wonderful idea. And a specific example is that as a CC, we're about to launch a course online, self-learning about resistance to antimicrobials. And looking at the posters, we realize that another CC, in this case, the one in the US, I can't see the number. It seems to me 400 and something. I will give you the number from Stanford University, just launched another self-taught course online on antimicrobials and their use. So this is a wonderful opportunity because we have the link, we have a QR code that immediately takes you to the activity, to the output, in this case, the self-learning course. And that is what we mean with centralizing and making it much more user-friendly and making the information accessible in order to be able to find it and arrive at it. Another important point that was considered was that Paho can support in articulating the capacities of CCs within the framework of emergency response in particular, which is a group we belong to, and also to coordinate, as had already been said, the articulation of CCs, even though it is not within this framework or in addition to this framework of emergency response, to include the new CCs to existing networks. And in along the same lines of the resistance, we mentioned as Mexico 33, we have the designation for 2 years already, and so far we have not connected with the group of CCs in RAM that we know exist. But we brought up the situation precisely here with Dr. Enrique Perez and Dr. Gabastu, so that we could promote this generation of networks, and in this case, thematic networks. But the conclusion is that communication, and particularly in times of a pandemic, through these virtual meetings, has to be exploited, and it's a wonderful opportunity for improvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabiola. Thank you very much for the mention about communication. Yes, we have actually been planning this this type of meeting for a long time, and it was only the pandemic that was able to help it move forward because of the virtual environment. But yes, we are looking at many different ways to improve and to help that communication between CCs and between Paho and CCs. The other thing that you mentioned about the deliverables, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because we in EIH have already started categorizing the deliverables. We've been looking through annual reports, and we've been pulling out those deliverables and categorizing according to whether they're publications or whether they're websites or whether they're toolkits, courses, training, things like that, so that we can put them in one place so that everybody can be can benefit from that that information, those deliverables. So thank you very much. And now we move to LEG, the Legislation and Health, Human Rights and Equity. And I believe the rapporteur is Dr. Katie Gottschalk.
Hi, I'm actually Catherine Gensbaugh. Katie is having some internet issues. So I'm from the WHO Collaborating Center at the O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law at Georgetown University Law Center. We're actually the only legal collaborating center, so our discussion was focused on what's working, where there's room for expanded coordination and support, and efficient and systematic ways to ensure continued collaboration. So at the O'Neill, our work plan is focused on research, providing technical assistance, and capacity building and strengthening. So our discussions started around the SDG number 3, but we also focused on human rights equity and how this can be operationalized across health for achievements of all sustainable development goals. And then a lot of our answers to the questions came back to strengthening communication and figuring out points of entries for idea and collaboration. So our initial starting point was to discuss forming an advisory group, just having an internal advisory group that could work with all technical departments across Paho and the O'Neill to identify the best ways to work together. And really make sure that the advisory group was there to add value, discussing main legal needs and support that Paho would like. And then we discussed the mechanisms that we can be involved in and tried to identify concrete ways to engage collaboration, capacity building. So part of that was joint work, including human rights perspective in all work that Paho does, and in identifying ways to engage academic work, case studies from Paho that we could take to our LLM students that would provide new academic work for them and enabling potentially creative suggestions. We discussed internal capacity building on human rights and legal perspectives, brown bag lunches, but also casual engagement and identifying issues and needs. We also discussed the possibility of having a new course that was a practicum course and having tangible products to support Paho, where the students become the contact points and then could turn into local consultants. And then to improve interactions and communications, we discussed regular engagement, having shorter term objectives and deliverables and regular updates via email. We also discussed the possibility of having monthly meetings or regular email communication that would lower the barriers and create shared systems. And then also talked about having direct requests brought to us from Paho. And another important point we considered was having a graduate of our LLM program placed at Paho to serve as a bridge between the two in a fellowship capacity. And then we just discussed how we can be better at identifying and showcasing CC deliverables. And a lot of that was more notification and systematic information sharing and more visible collaboration and just more notification of events and other materials to share. And then just having more shared spaces to keep the door open for better ways to communicate. And that was really all we discussed. A lot of it was just centered around better communication and kind of fostering that relationship.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. Yes, we agree. The communication piece is very important. And thank you for all those ideas that you brought up, that you put forward. I know that LEG does work with many different departments and topics, and those are included in the work plan that they developed. So thank you very much. And our last group is communication in health, led by CMU. Do we have somebody here?
Hi, this is Gilles Collette. My colleague, Marie Silva, is not able to join at this point, so I will give you a short recap. We are in the process of formalizing collaborating center capacity in communication with the University of Havana, Cuba. There are a number of potential coursework that will be presented via virtual environments and will be shared across the countries. The program is still in its infancy, and I believe if there were other collaborating centers who have capacity to develop communications at a level that can be useful in engaging public health dialogue, that will be, please do contact us. And that's all I have to report at this time.
Okay.
However, Roxana Gonzalez from Cuba is here as well,
Oh,
that I
good.
see,
Good.
and she may want to be adding a few details.
Okay.
Sí, buenas tardes. A ver, nosotros estamos, me escuchan bien, supongo. Nosotros
Good afternoon. We are totally ready to share the knowledge that we have in the Havana University Communication Center for regional courses, courses for communicators for the regional Paho offices, and we are more than ready to cooperate, and we have some connectivity problems in some institutions. So we organize this from our office, and we believe that human resources are here. You can count on us in this training about communication, and you can also count on us for other virtual courses if necessary. Thank you very much, and my best greetings to all.
I just wanted to mention that communication CMU is one of the other departments that only has one collaborating center, and that is communications. And that was only recently designated, so they are also a very new center. So thank you very much to everybody. Once again, we've taken great note and great interest in what you've presented to us today. And I'm going to give the floor back over to Eliane, or I'm sorry, to Dr. Garcia to give us the closing remarks and wrap up the session. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you all of our rapporteurs for this great report. Very brief, but having a very deep, I would say, content in what was 2 hours of very rich conversations with collaborating centers and departments. At this point, I would ask if anyone would have any comment on what we've heard so far. From our rapporteurs. Anyone wants to add anything from any of the different meetings that happened today? Any particular point that you would like to make? The microphone is open.
Me gustaría comentar algo, Guillermina.
Adelante, Guillermina, por supuesto.
I am Guillermina. I would like to say that had a lot of problems to connect, and I was very sorry that I was unable to participate in a group. I would have very much liked to participate with a CC on psychiatric issues, which is devoted to addictions such as alcohol and drugs, and also mental diseases. We have carried out a very important work, research on CA11. I hope that I will be able to have access to the following meetings. And I totally agree. I believe that the CCs need to work in a more integrated fashion as a team, and we should have more communication because there are some problems which can be tackled from different points of view, such as mental health issues, addictions, and I believe that it would be very good to research in a shared manner. Thank you. Thank you, Guillermina.
We're at the last minutes of our two-day webinar.
Y desde luego creo que fue muy interesante haber tenido esta reunión.
Of course, I want to add that it was very interesting to have this meeting. We have met this objective of have a meeting of all CCs, and I believe it was a very well organized meeting which allowed us to have a global overview, and I was very pleased to participate. Thank you, Guillermina. Well, then right now, let me take a few minutes of your time before we close this regional webinar to make some comments. I am going to share my screen with you in order to do so. Eliane, please let me know whether you can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. We had 2 very active days, 19th and 20th of April, with this webinar called Engaging Our Partners to Achieve the SDGs Together.
We work together, we discuss together, and we try to find ways in which our understanding of what we do improve, but also the way forward and how we can work together to make our relationship more productive, and of course our collaboration better focused to our mandates and our member state needs. So we discuss, of course, the linkage with between global and regional agendas, and how we all are within this Sustainable Development Goals agenda or broader context, particularly the 17 goals that will transform our world, and how we also worked within this on the GPW 13 and the triple billion targets, and of course our Pan American Health Organization Strategic Plan 2025, and our Sustainable Health Agenda of the Americas 2030. So all of this gives us the context of what we do and how we do it, and the alignment that we need to have in order to answer to all of these elements. We had a very productive session in 2 days, with 3 platforms being constantly used, being Zoom, YouTube, and Slido as well. We had 426 attendees registered, 43 e-posters received, and we thank you all for your contributions. We have also ¿Podemos cerrar los micrófonos, por favor? We had 8 concurrent breakout sessions today, with the participation of most of the regional collaborating centers, with 15 moderators, panelists, and facilitators in our first day, and 8 rapporteurs from the collaborating centers today. We had 27 logistics facilitators in days 1 and 2, with simultaneous translation, simultaneous interpretation both days, transmission, communications, and everything that made this possible. And I want to take this chance also to thank you all. We had participation from 29 countries and territories, making this a very successful meeting in that regard as well. So we had, from these 469 registered participants, we had Paho WHO collaborating centers and representation, as I said, for most of our regional centers. We also had the participation from our executive management and, of course, the department directors, whom I thank at this moment for their participation, the coordination of the particular departmental meetings as well, and all of the staff from the technical departments also for their contributions to this meeting. We, of course, had great participation from panelists, moderators, facilitators, and as I said, our interpreters in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and the logistic team. Thank you all for this. These are the countries where we had connections from. This is still preliminary as we don't have the full report from the platforms, but we have a very wide participation from the entire region and even beyond our region, as some of our collaborating centers are also from other regions. On day one, we had this focus on the evaluation on how to improve the work that we do with collaborating centers. We talked on the Paho developed study carried out in 2019 and the WHO evaluation in 2020 that have helped us to create this roadmap with interventions in the improvement of our work with collaborating centers. We discuss some of the priorities of the region and the global agenda, particularly some of the elements within with Paho's strategic plan 2025 and the global work plan 13, and of course also the agenda 2030. We discuss and gave a particular emphasis on some of the transversal elements in our strategic plans, particularly talking about equity, ethnicity, human rights, and measuring inequities within health and health results. How to incorporate all this within the Agenda 2030 indicators and the construction of dashboards that will allow us to have a better perspective on this and a better applicability into decision-making and policy-making. We had also discussions on our technical cooperation and alliances, talking about partnerships, South collaboration, solidarity, and Pan-Americanism, which is at the center of everything that we do. And some of the priorities for the technical cooperation, meaning universal health coverage, was at the center of the discussions, health systems and services, risk factors, mental health, nutrition, life course, social determinants, health promotion, communicable and non-communicable diseases, digital transformation, and information systems. And of course, in the context that we're at the moment, and that we will be for some time still for the future, of course, the discussion around emergencies and preparedness mainly focus on continuous surveillance, the international health regulations, and COVID-19 and other pandemics. So this is just a reflection of some of the items that were discussed and some of the comments, questions, and thoughts that were shared during the first day, and that were also part of the discussion today. This for sure will enrich our capacity as an organization to better understand our collaboration with collaborating centers and improve the way in which we do things with you and for countries. All of this is registered, and all of this will be part of the report and the following discussions that we will have in the near future. Day two, we have our conversation. I would say more than discussion, it was a conversation that we hope will become an ongoing conversation with all of you around these strategic questions. And these strategic questions and the answers that were very well captured by our rapporteurs will be the center of the report that will allow us to build with you, together with you, the way forward and how we can strengthen our relationship. Thank you again to our rapporteurs. You did an excellent job. You not only capture the richness of all the discussions in all of the 8 panels, you were also able to transmit this a few moments ago to the plenary. So thank you again to all of you. So now, what is going to happen with all of this information that we have received? To begin with, this will help us to give visibility to the deliveries reported in the e-poster. So we will keep this. I've seen a few comments whether we could keep this in the webpage and whether we could use the information in the e-posters. We will, I believe we have a very rich information, very comprehensive overview of what is happening in the collaboration with the centers and what we're doing in terms of the technical cooperation given to countries. So we will keep that, and that will be part of the report, not only from this meeting, for the ongoing work with collaborating centers. We will also use it to assess and find ways to address the recommendations provided, and in all of the sessions and all of this information that were captured in the chats and were captured also in the discussions in the breakout sessions. And we will create an executive report of this meeting that we will share with all of you. This will also help to find new modalities to engage with collaborating centers and of course also the relationship with Paho WHO staff. And we will use this to discuss new opportunities and challenges together. So this is not the last webinar that we will host, and this is only the beginning of a series of dialogues that we hope to establish with you in the near future. And this will also be used to encourage the establishment of new networks. And this is something that's been mentioned, particularly in all of the reports from the breakout sessions. The need to establish these new networks based on similarities and priorities to the region and the global agenda. And here it's been highlighted the importance of equity, topics around digital transformation, risk factors, capacity buildings, and key countries within the region. Of course, this is only a very brief, I would say superficial comment on everything that has been commented previously, and all that will, of course, be looked at in much detail and, of course, serve to create this comprehensive report. So from these 8 breakout sessions, all of the regional global priorities that we've discussed, and the panel and comments from yesterday, we will hope we hope that this will help us create this path towards achieving results together. So with this, I close my intervention. Once again, I thank you all. Obrigado. Muchas gracias. Es un gusto desde...
It is a pleasure from the Pan American Health Organization, and in particular, the EIH department, to be able to be with all of you in these 2 days. I would like to express my gratitude to all those who made this possible, the staff in the different departments within the organization, my colleagues and the directors of the technical departments, and the staff from the EIH department for all the support and the coordination that was needed in the organization of this 2-day seminar, particularly Elian Pereira, who's been with us in guiding the event, Sandra Weinger, who's been very close, and obviously each and every one of you, all those who participated, who've contributed, and who continue to be the raison d'etre of these meetings. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and I wish you the best of success in the future. I will leave the slides, some of the contact information that we have, inviting you to maintain constant communication with us and with the organization in the future. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Gracias, hasta luego.
Gracias.
Hasta luego, gracias.
Hasta luego.
Gracias a todos. Nos vemos pronto.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias.
Un gusto verte, Felipe.
Gusto verlos.
Bye.
Thank you
Hasta
from
luego,
Jamaica.
gracias.
Take good care.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Pablo, Susane. Gracias, nos vemos.
Gracias a ustedes.
Gracias, Sandra.
Gracias, buenas tardes.
Gracias
Chao.
a todos.
Gracias, Pablo.
For everyone. Chao, chao.
Chao.
Daphne, dejamos que
Un abrazo,
que van a se
Sandra.
despedindo.
Chao, chao.
Deja aí aberto pouco. La gente se va.
Tchau, tchau. Muito obrigado.
Tchau, obrigado.
Boa tarde.
Hasta luego, muy buenas tardes a todos e a todas. Muchas
Essa
gracias.
coisa eu conheço. Ana.
Ana,
Thank
oi,
Ah,
Dani, tudo bem?
conheci a voz. Tudo ótimo.
Nossa,
Obrigada, viu, por você ter
parabéns
participado.
aí.
Para nós.
Um abraço, tchau.
Tchau.
Saludos, doctor García Saizó.
Saludos, Roberto, ¿cómo está todo?
Aquí estamos, doctor, a la orden. Felicidades por la posición y por todo este gran evento, a todo el equipo OPS.
Al contrario, muchas gracias a ustedes. Ahí deben saber que fue todo un tema de discusión sobre en dónde debería haber estado el centro durante las discusiones con los departamentos, y que casi no los peleamos.
Sí, me imagino, pues la verdad es que pues, la idea de que hubiéramos participado dos era para que pues hubiéramos cubierto un poquito más de temas, pues tú sabes, nos interesa mucho, pero estuvo perfecto, ¿no? Les agradecemos de verdad muchísimo la invitación y pues, insisto, estamos ahí.
Igualmente, Roberto, estamos en contacto. Abrazo.
Shanice and Daphne, thank you so very much. Excellent job. Thank you very much for being here with us. Neither me or Sandy could have done this without you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Shanice y Daphne y Mónica también participó
Mônica
mucho, ¿no?
también, Marian, se fue todo um.
Ya no quise adentrarme más por riesgo a que dejar a alguien
De
fuera,
alguien atrás, sabemos. Solo quería dejar esto grabado ahí a ellas.
Yes.